kina semdol ka ke mo fa seda.
Welcome to Talking in Stations, recording live. I'm your guest host, Carneros. Matterall is away on assignment. The Lifeblood expansion has arrived, and New Eden is in transition. Markets have reacted, stockpiles have been counted and carefully unlocked. They're starting to be used. Player star bases are starting to be taken down, with one small hiccup there for a day, but we won't talk about that. And mining platforms are being built. Some of them are dying and some of them are being put up. Today, there are very few good places to refine your ore into minerals, but this is just a short moment in the transition as new structures are going up as we speak. How are you handling this transition to this new world? What adjustments have you made so far? And let's also ask our panel and our guests. And also, let's just see where stuff is happening in New Eden for those who aren't the target audience for any of the Lifeblood changes. Some things don't change for some people. Before we do that, if you'd like to support this show, please visit patreon.com/Matterall, Matterall. Your pledges help keep the sponsored interruptions away. And to those listeners that have pledged, thank you very much. Joining me on the panel today, we've got our financial markets expert and co-host, Caleb, from SCC Lounge, a financial group. Please say hello, Caleb.
Hey, people.
Thank you. We want the listeners to have a chance to hear your voice and associate it with you. Also on the panel today, helping me, is Mr. Seamus Donahue, professor, Eve University.
Hello.
Thank you. Okay, and our guest today we've got the famous Pandemic Legion military leader, member of Shadoo's Northeastern SWAT Corporation, Killa B. Please say hello, sir.
Hey, what's up?
McLeod, please say channel. We also have famous Brave Newbies Logi pilot, disruptive soundboarder, although I hate to say that because he might, drama cyno inhibitor, Mr. Dunk Dinkle. And just joining us now, but having a little bit of technical difficulty, is Sister Bliss, CEO of the initiative. He'll be on in a second. He hasn't quite clicked the right button. If you could reach out to him, that would help. Oh, there you are. Say hello, Sister Bliss.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Great, your timing, impeccable. So today we're talking about how New Eden is reacting to the changes, and we're also, and just any other player news going on right now. Not everything that got implemented this week has yet occurred and shown up in game, but some of it has, and let's react to that first. First of all, there were some nice quality of life changes. I didn't realize this at first. It wasn't obvious to me until it went live, but isotopes have been halved in size. You can now fit more isotopes into your capital ship fuel bay. That's nice. It kind of lets you fit a little bit more. I love it. Yes. Quality of life for me. I appreciate it. And then your gate destination's security status is now visible on overview. Can come in handy, especially when you're right on the edge between null sec and low sec, or low sec and high sec. How many days in corp is now displayed in your corporate history? Helpful.
Yeah, and then all the shadow stuff that the little matters team is actually rolling out. They even managed to fix a little thing in the wallet, which is very novel, daring to touch that stuff.
What is that? I didn't see that.
Where you put in the name of when you do the search in the wallet for specific items, that bar is actually now following the size of the entire window.
Okay, cool.
So you can actually read what you've written.
We also have some of our first Athenors showing up on the kill board. I don't know if you can throw that link up. But actually got a first Athenor kill. I was impressed.
It must be 2 at least now, if not more. One died right before the big capital brawl in Losik yesterday, and one died in Provi during its initial 15-minute whatever window. So there must be a couple now.
Dozens have died, actually. Dozens.
Yeah.
But there's also been one kill, one thing killed by an Athenor so far.
Oh, okay. Oh, whatever.
That cracks me up.
Z kill is Tessayan, 27 lost?
Yeah, sounds right. They don't seem to show up in the Citadel thing yet. Like in Z kill and in the Citadel Cadet, whatever. I can't see them, so probably not there yet.
All right, and I don't think we've seen any Tataras yet.
Well, first Tataras came out of build today. It wasn't possible to have one before, so the first one should have been anchored or online or whatever today after downtime.
So they'll show up tonight.
Yeah, probably the first ones will show up tomorrow, tonight, or whatever.
For those wondering what we're talking about, the Athenor is the medium-sized drilling platform refinery, and the large is called the Tatara. Assuming I'm pronouncing them correctly, which I might not be.
Yeah, probably right. I mean, these names are, again, one of those. I always wonder where CCP comes up with their names for all that stuff. I really like the new moon mineral names as well, especially Ytterbite is awesome.
Yeah, that has to be an homage to Ytterbium. That would be my guess. But so we've got a bunch of new stuff coming online, but some of it that hasn't yet. The Tataras aren't up yet, but any day now. And then the first fracking hasn't happened yet either. If you immediately put up your Athenor and immediately set up your drill and shot it and set it for the shortest possible duration, it's still going to be later in this week, close to next weekend, before you get your first opportunity to actually explode one and try out the mining. But
yeah,
it's coming soon. People are excited.
Minimal duration is 6 days.
In addition, other parts that we haven't really tried out yet in Lifeblood. So far, I believe the first Garista's shipyard has not yet been scanned down. At least no one's come forward yet about it. I'm looking over at the Twitch stream chat, and I want to see if any of our viewers in there listening to the show live know anything yet about the first Garista's shipyard.
Oh, none have been found. That's right. We've been looking for them, but they have not been found yet. Not enough tryhards.
As someone who has personally spent time scanning down Blood Raider shipyards, it's a pain in the butt. It's a lot of work.
Oh, and of course, all the new reaction methods are going to start activating because people have been moving their stuff around, right? The raw moon goo is going to be reacted now again.
Yeah, the reactions are underway now if people have the Athenors set up for that.
Woohoo! Well, some people were prepared in advance. There was a fun tweet I saw this week on Twitter from one of our guests, actually. Let me see if I can get the thing to show up. McLeod, can you make that show up in the Twitch panel? But yeah, you'll see that Dunk Dingle was running around getting ready, just like I was. And I saw that and I laughed, and I can relate.
Well, I think there was a subset of people that were planning for literally months trying to buy things cheaply and stock it and do all the math. And there was a bunch of people, like in the last week, it was suddenly, oh, I'm going to buy some stuff for this. And prices spiked and people were cornering markets. It was pretty fun to watch the stuff.
And the jaded, well-prepared bitter vets were just smiling and nodding and going, of course, they do this every time. It's a lot of fun.
Well, they did change some of the materials on some of the rigs in the very last week, which for those of us that didn't have an extra trillion to throw at this was disheartening.
Yeah. And I've had people, plenty of people in my alliance who had no idea any of this was going on, and blissfully typing away in the last few hours in alliance chat saying, where do I refine my minerals? And I'm like, dude, yeah. Lifeblood? What's that? Yeah. So there's always a few like that. So one thing that everyone was expecting was that the markets would go crazy, that not just the minerals and materials would spike, but so would the products of Tech2 stuff. So, Caleb, have you seen any evidence of the markets going wild?
Yeah, it's all been moving for about a week or so, and it's kind of starting to settle. I think some of the first early-in speculators are now slowly starting to offload a little bit of moon goo. So they're starting from least refined, and then they will hold on to the most refined stuff. So things like hulls are going to start moving up in price because people are going to hoard them and not start selling them yet, right? And of course, you've seen between 50 to about 150% increase in all of the things related to Tech2 production. So all the way from moon goo to components and all the way up. And mods for chips, Tech2 mods, are all about doubling in price now, and they're running low in JITA. Components are almost drained, the remaining stock. So we're going to have to wait the week or two until they start coming in again.
Yeah, at one point, somebody literally bought out all the sabers in JITA, every single one, except for like the 300 million troll ones. So
yeah, but they waited
the price
very
had come
long.
back down. Yeah, I don't know, but somebody has a lot of sabers right now, and the prices are still high. And then for like T2 Logi ships, things that people really need, those are still sky high right now.
Yeah, so now you're just seeing all the prices are just trickling down into the dependencies. So eventually you're going to start seeing some of the hits going into things like invention and data cores and stuff like that. I don't know how much. I do think that that's pretty well stocked, so it's not going to be a huge impact, but it is always going to follow a little bit on the composition of build cost. The only thing that's now a little bit sad is that the strain on minerals is not going to be that high, or at least people don't expect it to be that high. So it's actually the lower end minerals have started tanking.
To be expected.
Yeah, but I don't think that it's necessarily correct. I do think that there's a good opportunity to get in there, because when the labor starts moving, you will see a strain. Maybe not as big as people expected, but it should hit. People will not be very happy to mine the low end stuff when they have the option to go for moon materials.
I've been having alliance members coming to me asking, where can I have a moon to set up a drilling platform, and which moons should I go for? And they'll talk through some of their strategy in front of me, and some of the things that they'll say is, well, maybe I should go for a lower end mineral type thing or a mid-range one, because those areas will be opportunities on the short term while people are all focused on R64s and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So
it's just a matter of how much stockpile is already in the investors' hands, and how long can that buffer actually last. Some of the things that Tuzzy was saying in the earlier show is that we won't see any huge moves or developments until like 3-4 weeks out. So do we have enough on stock to supply the markets for that long? I don't know. I suspect that there's plenty of big investors that have materials, but it's just, will they sell it at the low end price? So I do think that you're going to see a bit of spiking on the low end minerals, and then you might see a little bit of tanking on the high ends, because I think it's a little bit over speculative. I do think there's plenty of high end minerals available now.
another thing that the price is spiking on right now are the very first Athenors and Tataras on the market in JITA. If you didn't prepare at all, you can walk in right now, sell a bunch of Plex, buy your items right now off the shelf, and go drop them like you're a boss.
Well, it does look as if it's normalizing pretty fast. I know that Killer was talking about it earlier, that he was putting one up, and compared to build cost and the 13 billion range, it's already at 19. So I do think that it's going to normalize at 16 or 15 billion.
You guys buy Killas now before the price comes down. And then, but there are some bargains out there right now. I've seen some bargains in the area of ship skins. You can, like, one of the things that just started back up is the Crimson Harvest. They do this every year at around Halloween season. The idea being that Blood Raiders are a little bit like zombies, which are a little bit like Halloween creatures, and it fits the theme in terms of what you could do with New Eden lore. Oh, I said lore on this show. But the Crimson, the Crimson stuff has skins that it drops, and those usually come out in enough quantity that you can get ones for your ships at a reasonable price on the Gene market. Love that. The skill accelerators also are back. Love those. They're not quite cheap yet, but they're around. And remember to add that to your shopping list to pick up for your characters. Your high skill point characters can benefit wonderfully from those on a way that they can't from the little skill injectors.
So one thing about those, they made a mistake, and you can't search for them on the market itself just yet. So there's none of them for sale on the market. They're only up on the contracts. And even on the contracts, they weren't available to search for on contracts until I think this downtime that just happened. So you can get them on contracts right now, but be careful of the scams, a bunch of expired stuff people are trying to sell, that kind of thing.
Yeah, there's some work that has to be done on the back end when you set up the item to make a market listing for it, or it won't show up in the market. And apparently, I don't know if that got left off or that was intentional, but I'm hoping they add a market listing to it so it'll show up in there. And it looks like the Blood Raider Covenant stuff and the Crimson Harvest stuff both drop the Headhunter skins. Am I right on that?
Yeah, they dropped the sub-capital Headhunter skins. You can't get the Avatar Nyx Hell ones of the events. You can only get those by buying them with Plex, which are really the ones you want to have, right? I mean, the Oracle one looks really cool. Don't get me wrong, but at the end of the day, you wanna put that on the Avatar on the Hell. Those skins look really good on those ships, so gonna have to eventually buy them with Plex, I guess, if you want them. And if they do it the same way they did with Crimson Harvest, they're not going to be available when the event's over. So, yeah, I got my skin for the Hell. Let's put it that way.
Well, then the question you ask yourself is, do I buy an extra to put on the market later when they're not available?
The thing is, they might rise in value. Like if you look at I'm not really sure which skin it is. There's like one skin for the Nyx or something that is sitting at like 30 bill, but just nobody's buying that, right? Yeah, I'm not sure if you're gonna get rid of it eventually, but yeah, I mean, it's not a bad idea. You'll always get rid of them for at least what you paid for them, right? You can probably price them up a bit when you don't get rid of them for 10 bill each. You're still gonna get rid of them for like 4 or 5 bill each, and you still make like 3 bill profit on each skin. So you could probably do that, yes, if you have enough plex.
Yeah, one of the tricks I keep in my back pocket is putting out expensive ship skins in the last 2-3 weeks before Christmas for the people who are doing Secret Santa things, because some of the rich folks will spend money for Secret Santa gifts.
That's true, yeah. Secret Santa is always coming up. It's always a really big thing in PL as well. The Secret Santa thing is lots of money is being moved around when it happens. So it's a good thing to keep in mind.
Yep. Killer B, what have you been doing to prepare for or to transition for Lifeblood?
Well, I mean, I was really eager to get the moon mining going. I'm now a lot less eager when I saw the numbers. I'm pretty unimpressed by what you make with it. I'll probably run it for like 1 month and I'll stop doing it because it's not like worth the effort. But it's still like the mechanics look super fun. I like the animations are gorgeous. I did it yesterday after downtime. I shot the laser and it was great. It looked great. It was pretty fun to do. But the whole like mining process is I think you have to be basically a serious miner and you can make some really good profit off of that. Like we have one guy in PL that he basically is putting up or is in process of putting up like 70 medium refineries on 70 different moons, and basically he's just going to chain mine moons instead of mining colossals at all, and you'll make more money and you also don't have to mine Mercoxit, so it's more comfortable and more profitable. But that's like a large scale mining sort of operation, which I'm not really into. I'm just going to do it with a couple of my friends. We have a couple of good moons. We're just going to mine them for a little bit, see what kind of money we can pull out of it, and if we feel like we don't want them anymore, we'll just sell them to some other people.
I think that's an important example of how much raw material is actually potentially going to be sunk out of the game from the stockpiles, because 70 here, 70 there, and then you saw that the number of blueprints, the value was totaling 14.3 trillion or something like that. So, and it's 100,000 moons already that's available. So it's a lot of material that could be sunk out of the economy.
How many of you on the panel in the group here have spent hours this week scanning moons?
I haven't. Luckily, we have as very nicely demonstrated in the meta show last week. We have the PL peasants to do all that. EFCs don't have to do the shit themselves. So
I think the numbers from Quant was 269,000 scans were done, which is quite impressive.
We had some really, really try-hard guys in PL. We have one guy that's still going. He's like just literally probing all the regions in the game or something. I don't know what project he's on, but we were done with Tribute, T-Null, and Veil of the Silent within the first like 24 hours of the release of the downtime, and Horde was done with Fate and Pure Blind as well really quickly. And most of the north is basically completely scanned out now. I think the Quant released that graph that like 95% of the moons or 90% of all the moons in the game were like probed within the first 24 hours, basically. I think that's something to be expected. Yeah, I mean,
it's impressive every time, right?
It's like a huge gold rush, I know it from, and this is kind of funny because in PL we had this huge like excitement. Everybody was like, man, I want to get this really good moon. And then everybody was like probing, and basically it was first come, first serve, right? So if you found one of the really good moons, you could claim it. And everybody was just going like wild, probing their moon so they could find a good one and then claim it for themselves. And now, like a couple of days into the patch, people are starting to realize that it's not as glorious as you might think. So lots of people are like, giving their moons away again, or just, not caring anymore, basically. It's pretty fun.
You get excited about the land rush to go grab something. It's like Black Friday sale at Walmart, to use an American cultural reference. But then you get in there and get to them and you realize, I don't know if I even really want this, thing that I rushed up for.
I risked being trampled to death for this.
Exactly.
I think what I take away from this,
you do. There's a defensive thing of it too. You want to know what's valuable in the areas that are near you. So, people's recon teams, even if we weren't going to mine it, we want to know where somebody might plant something so that we know where they might be for a fight, or, there's just a lot of complexity in this, not just on the going to make money side, but where are we going to get a fight? Is someone going to drop an Athanor that we could shoot? Like, there's a lot of it. And the groups that had recon teams that were prepped, practiced, had all their systems in place, I think that went really quick. It was crazy to see the amount of stuff getting posted to Pastebin, where people's hard work was available for free if you had a Pastebin scan.
I just think it's one of those examples of where CCP is kind of missing out on an opportunity, right? To maybe add imperfect knowledge that maybe you could make scanning not perfect. So as you keep trying to prospect over time, you would get more and more information.
I hate you. Don't even say these words.
It's because it's not. It's 24 hours and all the knowledge is now perfect. That's a missed opportunity, in my opinion.
So Eve isn't hard enough yet. You have to make it.
It's not about hard. It's about adding some longer perspective goals. That if you keep going, you get more and more better and better information instead of this perfect knowledge instantly.
You go unanchor like 5 structures and then scoop them and then move them to some other place, and then you come back and tell me how much you want the moons to change all the time. Like, it's just such a huge pain in the butt.
I said that you should not have perfect knowledge of how the composition is universally, right? That's all I'm saying. I'm saying you could add a less perfect knowledge on the valuation of your moons, right?
I can get that. But, this is a game of spreadsheets and max minning, and so that's why they do this kind of thing. But those of us that have to do some of the alliance level logistics, just everything is getting more painful, and everyone on the Reddit seems to think it's awesome that everything's more painful for the logistics people. So I'm never not going to be frustrated about anchoring and onlining and all that.
Yeah, it's just funny because the place where there is fog of war is in the market, which in real world equivalent, that's something that's perfectly available for everyone. No fog of war at all. Whereas numbers on things like resources and productivity and stuff like that, that's not perfect knowledge. That's always changing. So we have a little bit of an upside down world in Eve.
There's another
Killer B wants to talk about spaceship pew pew pew. So let's talk about things getting blown the fuck up.
All right, we'll switch over. This is Killer B. Hey, I heard that an FCON super carrier or super capital pilot made a mistake this week. Sounds dubious. Could that be true?
I mean, it was pretty it was a pretty straightforward subcap sort of engagement where Try was there in Feroxes. No, Try was in Loki's and FCON informed Feroxes to kill them. So there's a little bit of backstory to be told about this. If you can open up McLeod, if you can open up the staging constellation of FCON in Immensia on .lan, the staging system is called Vortec G. Basically, there's something very special about this constellation, which is it is basically behind a bottleneck or behind an entrance. There's an entrance to that constellation, which is the QE tech system. So what we did, Try and PL mostly, we have in-capped all their jump bridges that lead out of their staging constellation or into their staging constellation. And we are basically forcing the FCON members to take that gate. And we've just been camping it 24/7 for the past, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. So their members are getting really frustrated about not being able to get, their stuff out of their own staging system or into their own staging system because we've been camping it all the time. They started using inties to travel around. We put smart bomb battleships on the gate. They started losing their inties. They're really frustrated, and occasionally FCON forms up to bust that gate camp. And that's kind of what happened, what this whole thing started. So FCON formed up a Ferox fleet to bust the gate camp, and Try like sort of was there with like a little Shield Loki skirmish fleet or whatever to camp the gate, and they started fighting and basically try to like even out the numbers a little bit, dropped a bunch of Hordreds onto the Feroxes. And then the FCON, like some FCON, I don't know if it was an FC or if it was a Corp, somebody in FCON decided it was a smart idea to like counter drop with some dreads on their own and a Nyx and an Avatar. And then Try obviously responded with a proper dread bomb. And yeah, well, FCON got kind of stumped. So yeah, that's basically what happened. It was pretty fun. I released some logs on Reddit yesterday. Huh?
Can Hodreds really take on Feroxes? I mean,
of course, yeah, easily. If you look at yesterday, DBRB took a nice Ferox roam into Tino, and I solo brawled his like 100-man Ferox fleet in my Vanquisher, and I had no problem tracking them at all. I killed them pretty hard, in fact. That's pretty fun. I didn't get to bosun them because they stayed at range. Like they didn't want to get bosuned, obviously, so DBRB stayed at like 70, 80 all the time. But even if you go to like 120, I would still hit you. So, and that's kind of the max range a Ferox can go, depending on the fitting. So yeah, Hordreds have no problem at all killing Feroxes. So that's what happened to FCON. And their member base is really struggling at the moment. It's pretty fun to see or to watch if you're not part of it, I guess. I've posted some logs of one of the command channels or leadership channels or whatever of FCON on Reddit yesterday, where basically they're just debating about what's going wrong, why they're losing the war that's currently going on in the South and stuff like that. And it seems like their member base is really trying to figure out what's going on. To me, it seems like an information issue, whereas most of the people don't know what's going on, and that's why they're unhappy. Because they feel like they're just losing all the time, whereas maybe it's not as bad as they think it is or something. It's kind of weird.
I noticed that my Alliance members sometimes get more negative in tone if there isn't a lot of information flow. So lots of Alliance meetings or information flow seems to calm everything down. Yeah.
I think it's important to keep your members informed of what's going on if you want them to understand why you're doing what you're doing. You can basically, I mean, if you do it right, you know, can you get that linked? What, the Reddit thing? Yeah, I can link that if I can get permission to link stuff, or I can just link it in the channel and you can
put it in the backstage.
Yeah.
And then McLeod will stick it up there. As far as I know, he's the only one who can do it.
I think being able to, like, if you do it right, you can basically sell your members whatever you want right now. Without going too far into like the narrative kind of thing, but I think that the looking at what basically there's people in the game that are able to sell losses to their members as a victory. You can always spin it or turn it in a way to make it more appealing to your member base. Obviously, if it's too much of a spin, then people will realize that. But I think if you play right with the information that you give your members and how you give them that information, you can never have the problems that FCON is having right now, but it seems like they're having no real information flow at all, or the wrong information flow, and they're just struggling with that.
So where's most of the action happening in New Eden right now?
It's all in the south, yeah. It's all around Curse, Catch, Amencia, and then we have obviously that's all right. I was wrong. It's not all in the south because you have that GOTG invasion of the drone lands in the north right now.
Falls, yeah.
Exactly. So you have these two hotspots in New Eden right now. Basically, Paragon Falls with GOTG versus the drone control unit or whatever they call themselves, and then DRF obviously coming up for assisting them in big timers. We had the huge brawl over that Sotio last week in 83 tech. That was a really, really big brawl, and basically everybody turned up for that again. GOTG stood their ground. They lost a lot of battleships for sure, but I respect GOTG for being able to fight, I don't know, lots of alliances. Basically everybody was there besides, NCPL weren't there, but there was a lot of groups there shooting GOTG, and they managed to clear the objective and win the ISK war even. Although they did lose a lot of battleships, yeah. So obviously, if you fight like 1,000 people on your own, then you're gonna take some losses. So you have that going on in the north, and then you have all the content going on with FCon, Try, Test, Us, PL in the southeast, sort of with around Curse Catch area, Imensia, where it's mostly right now. There's a lot of sovereignty timers going on. We haven't had like a big strategic sort of fight in a while. We've mostly been doing skirmishy stuff, like I said, the constant gate camp of their in the staging constellation, and then reinforcing stuff, and playing Fozzies off and all its fun, mostly being 400 interceptors roaming through constellations and killing each other occasionally. Very engaging, very entertaining.
There's lots of stuff going on in Catch, and people jumping in and out of Impasse. There's lots of like good fighty type stuff going on, but we're also witnessing a lot of the winter migration flocks of Russian Feroxes through Catch, which is always fun to deal with.
Well, there was a little pause too this week while people ran around in circles scanning moons.
I don't think we saw any pause. Like, people are fighting and shooting all over the place all the time in the south. I mean, there haven't been huge, big engagements, but people are fighting every day. This talk of the blue donut, we don't see it.
Where's Brave Newbies been running around in PvP?
Well, Catch is like the crossroads of the south, so people are always coming through looking for fights, and so Catch is really the hot spot for kind of skirmish fighting, like Killerby's talking about. And then Impasse, we've trying to learn how to crab, not so successfully all the time. I think there was some, Rourke got tackled, and then Hell came in to help it, and then Volta called on the Russians, and so a bunch of stuff got blown up down in our ratting systems in Impasse. So there's always that. The wormholers are very good at finding us, finding anyone who's ratting. So there's a lot of that going on.
Oh, a dead ratting hell? That's like a Tuesday in Delve. I know.
Well, it was one of these things where they jumped into, quote, help. So, people really, when people get tackled, what we want is faxes going in, but instead the hell pilot decided they would come in and kill everything, and then it didn't go so well.
So super carriers and Titans dying, by the way, has become so common that I did a little research on Zkillboard, which is not completely accurate, but I did a little research. When was the last time we had a day that no super carriers or Titans died? And the answer, where did I put that? September 19th, 2017. So it's been, 5 weeks, 6 weeks since we had a day with no super cap losses.
Yeah, something to realize. So I mean, you could use this. So CCP would use this data, right? And they would be like, "Oh, you guys claimed that with Phoebe and with all these changes, there's not going to be any capital fights anymore. Look at how many supers have died. Well, 99% of those have died ratting. I'm not really sure if I would call that a fight, because it's usually really easy. But you're right that PvP, obviously
that's ganking. Yeah.
There's a lot of supers dying, and just yesterday we've had a really, really big capital brawl. So there is still capital brawls around. I think generally, most of the people claiming that Eve is dead, or that there is no content in Eve, are just too lazy to create the content. And it's still a problem, because it requires way more effort to get the same amount of content, or to get to the content that it would back in the day, right? For example, our average Provi-op, right? For, let's say we reinforce something in Providence, and we go over there. In the old days, it would have taken us. We would have bridged once with subcaps. We would have bridged twice with subcaps, and we would have been in a destination system. We would have had our fight, and we would have bridged out again. We would have bridged again, and we would have been home. We had a 30-minute brawl. We would have had probably like 10, 15 minutes travel time. Now with fatigue, it is we have to gate about like 6 or 7 jumps. We take a bridge. We take another 2 or 3 jumps. We have a fight for 30 minutes, and then we have to gate like 15 jumps back, because we don't want to stack up our fatigue. So we are still available for the remainder of the evening. And those 15 jumps, if you have caps, then obviously Providence likes to, I think waterboarding is the flavor of the month again, where everybody's just waterboarding everyone when they can. So then you get waterboarded in every gate. Dictors can keep reapproaching the gates with cloaks and bubbling up as much as they want. It's literally impossible to catch if they don't fuck up. And you take like an hour to get back home or 30 minutes to get back home. So
let's remind our viewers what waterboarding is.
Oh yeah, waterboarding is just having a couple of dictors chase your fleet around. And then whenever you take a gate, they jump with you. They bubble your fleet so you can warp off. And they just reapproach the gate with their cloaks. They turn the MWDs on cloak, burn towards the gate, and you can't kill them because you can't lock them up. And then when they're on the gate at 0, they just jump through. When you jump through a gate, your bubble still remains active on the other side of that gate. So they can keep us bubbled without being present in system, without being able to be killed for a quite amount of time. So then you have to you have to bring bombers with your fleets to bomb the bubbles off, or you have to bring command destroyers with your fleet so you can boost the bubbles away to be free, which is both viable options, but it's something that you have to prepare for. And if you have to boost a bubble off every single gate, it still takes you more time than it would to just, bridge back. So like a 1 hour fleet basically turns into
Sister Bliss. How's the
1.5
initiative
hours.
been doing in the South this week?
Yeah, okay. I mean, for us, it's pretty quiet right now. We're just gearing up. Sorry, I was just coming halfway through the conversation. Yeah, it's been pretty quiet for us. We've just been dealing with the post-patch stuff and getting ready to go back on deployment. So looking forward to shooting stuff again very soon.
You're not out in a fleet right now, are you?
I actually am just shooting some low session IO, which is not particularly exciting, but yeah, nothing too taxing.
I'm so not surprised. I love it. I was out last night in a fleet, in a hurricane fleet. We went just for fun. We did a cheapy peacetime. We're probably going to lose the fleet type thing through wormholes, and we ended up in Declan, and we're running around shooting things. And we finished, and just in like Killabee described, we had to make our way back a very long way. It was 30 jumps to our wormhole. And then the wormhole got us back to a convenient location. 30 jumps in a hurricane is, more than you really want to take on an average night, unless you've been, drinking or something. And it's slow sometimes, but we, I don't know, that's what we chose to do for some reason. It's not like there isn't other forms of PvP closer, but that's where we went. I didn't want to self-destruct my hurricane because I got a kill mark. Call me shallow. But yeah, usually with the actions in the South. And yeah, Catch is a great location. One of the, my guys keep saying, oh, Carneros, take us out to Fountain. Let's go do something in Fountain. But there's something new going on in Fountain, isn't there? Sister Bliss, tell us what's going on in Fountain.
Not a whole lot, really. I mean, since Culture left the area and vacated, I mean, we've just been taking it over and getting it set up, and just getting some of the resident renters back in play, and also just opening it up to more people who want to come and just grab a piece of space and make some misc and stuff. So yeah, it's kind of largely administrative, and if anyone's interested, you can join the iRent channel and see if there's anything for you. But no, it's been pretty quiet over there, to be honest with you. I think we're all looking forward to getting back into some combat ships and shooting some stuff.
Yeah, the channel, the in-game chat channel is called i.rent, iRent. And you can hook yourself up with your own vacation spot or home away from home in Fountain. It's lovely.
Wait, are we making renter commercials on the show?
Yes, we are. And,
all right, let's also mention there's some sweet rental space available in the north, including Tribute, Venal. Oh well, Venal is NPC. Tribute, Tino, Veil of the Silent. You can all you gotta do is join We RMT Pub in game, and then
spell that out. Spell that out.
It's in. Let me spell it out in
We RMT
Pub.
We
RMT Pub. That's the in-game channel. It's invasion proofed, yeah, in CFC successfully,
Very
they
nice.
successfully deployed north and tried to invade the space, but then they failed horribly. So it's proof against, the only other group that can rival us in the first place. So yeah, you're very welcome to rent and get the best space you want.
Yeah, I think no one's interested in that anymore. I think Farnsworth is that killer. Let's be clear.
Oh, we'll see.
Well,
Is
Lady
Tweetdeck
Scarlet
irrelevant?
is a
No.
personal friend. I think I'm allowed to name drop her, and so I don't mind at all mentioning her as well. So and that nice wee RMT pub. Besides, there are wormholes up to that area, and we'll come and pay a visit to our old stomping grounds.
There's a really good question in Twitch chat. Why rent in 2017? I have no idea, man. I have no idea why people rent
There are
it, but
total
it's
other options.
plenty of renting
totally
requests
other
out there.
options. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the reason to rent in 2017 is you want to play for yourself. All you want to do is rat and mine and play for yourself. Maybe you fancy yourself a little bit of an entrepreneur. You don't want a boss. You don't want to live that kind of life. You want to live your own life. There, you can go do that. If hostiles come, there's no expectation that you have to form up against them. You could just dock up. You don't have to do. You don't have to join CTAs. You don't have participation requirements. No one is going to look at you. All you have to do is pay your rent and go on with your life. But if you actually join a Sovnol alliance, then you get a community, you get action, you get opportunities to go and join fleets. You get a lot of other things that I think are more compelling than just having your personal freedom and time. It's a trade-off. Any of the rest of you have thoughts on that?
I think there's a lot of industry renting that goes on as well. I mean, you rent a system that has the characteristics you want, you put in your industry setups, you do all your construction, manage the price indexes and all that kind of stuff. So there's, I think, a significant amount of that goes on at the same time on the industry side, which isn't about fighting, but just maximizing the profit they can get.
I think the logic is upside down. They need people to actually work the space. So I don't think that the laborers should pay for the right to labor.
Well, let's look at it. If you're going to look at it at that rate, let's think for a moment about alliance income. One of the things that the Bastion members like about the Bastion is being paid SRP, ship replacement program. So PvPers who lose a ship can get their ship reimbursed out of alliance funds. We made a pretty little web application that you paste in your fleet ping and you paste in a link to your loss. And sure enough, about 24 hours later, you get a transfer into your fund with some ISK to pay for your lost ship. It encourages PvP action. PvP is good for EVE. So I believe that SRP is good for EVE. But up until Tuesday, we mostly paid for our PvP with moon mining proceeds, moon mining reaction proceeds, and accommodation. Now we lost our main income source. So we're doing things like taxing refineries, and we're taxing ratters, and we're looking around for things. Rental programs is one of the things you can do to fund your alliance SRP, and that's valuable to encourage more PvP. I'm not sure what CCP's game design is these days around how to fund an alliance, but that's an option.
You need to put in costs and taxations in the interims between tiers of refining items and the whole ecosystem, right? So the equivalent to in the feudal age that you would make your money on as a miller, not necessarily by just grabbing everything from the laborers. So it's in the hardware actually put in there. So the structures, the refineries. I think that's why goons have a pretty decent idea about nationalizing the structures involved in moon mining.
Well, I mean, it's the taxing in the refineries right now is so just broad. It can be adjusted to allow, hey, if you're going to refine like asteroid minerals, you have one rate. If you're going to refine moon minerals, you have another rate. Same thing for reactions. If you're able to break that down, you'd be able to get those rates a little better. And that's just CCP probably it's hard to do. They didn't do that. They're counting on these mining ledgers and people sending bills in the mail and enforcers coming around and knocking on your door and AWACSing you. So I'm not too down with that, but I'd prefer more nuanced control of taxes, and that'd be probably a good reaction to what's going on in Lifeblood and Alliance funding.
A little bit of a change of subject right now, but I got a poke from my logistics director who gave me a little bit of lore to go about Lifeblood. I have to tell you this. This cracks me up. I did not know this. The word Tatara in Japanese is the name of the furnace used for smelting iron and steel. And in alchemy, an athanor is a furnace used to provide a uniform and constant heat for alchemical digestion.
I'm not surprised at something like this. Like all the names that CCP has come from something, right? There's no, as far as I know, there's no completely made up names. Most of the ships are some, like for example, the Titans are all kind of goddess or like something, right? Like gods and shit. And then you have like the, I mean, all the ores and minerals that exist actually exist. Most of them exist in real as well. I'm not sure if they're like the same thing, but the names aren't like made up, so I'm not surprised that it means something. I just think it's hard to spell, and sometimes I think the renaming is like completely unnecessary and just makes things more complicated. I'm still mad that they renamed Iteron Mark 1 to 5 to some shitty whatever it's called now. Like why Iteron Mark 1 to 5 was perfectly fine for me. I don't know why they have to call them Ocular, Vider, whatever. Like, can you just leave it as it is? What's the deal?
Well, the Iteron Mark V retains its old name, but the Marks 1 through 4 were renamed when all of the industrials were repurposed. So the entire Iteron series was no longer just a progression of more expensive Iteron, bigger cargo bay. Now they were actually specialized to different things, so it made sense to give them new names.
So people in the Twitch chat were talking about should you have to have SRP for people to go out in PvP? I think that's a pretty interesting topic. I know in Brave we've debated it back and forth, and the reality is we see that you get higher participation in SRP fleets. There's some people that are always going to fight, and there's other people that literally we can track, and they only fight when there's SRP. So I don't know what other groups find with SRP, but it's definitely a huge factor in larger alliances about funding SRP and what is SRPable.
Well, you want to encourage PvP. That's part of the reason why they make adjustments to timers on structures. It's part of the reason why people are going to miss bosses when they're gone. You want to do what you can to encourage it. And one of the things you can do is enable SRP. Purely math. If you add SRP to the picture, you get a higher participation rate in PvP.
Well, Eve was working fine before SRP became standard. Just saying.
Was it?
I think it's
pretty well. I think it's a habitual thing. People have gotten used to getting things for free, and I don't think that, at least, of course, some SRP might be still needed, at least for what you would call basic warfare. But the high-end SRP, I've always thought was a little bit of a problem, because it just proves that a lot of stuff has become too easy.
The problem is when you make your alliances depending on SRP, which is what happens when you introduce SRP in the first place. Like, even though it's not your goal to make people like addicted to SRP, but they will be. And if your alliance is ever in a position where you can't provide that SRP anymore, let's say you're being pushed out of your space, you're losing all your alliance income, you can't afford SRP anymore, you have to cancel it. you will just not be able to form fleets anymore because people are like, well, there used to be 100% SRP on my ship. Now there isn't, so I'm not going to join. It's one of the reasons why
If I may, Killer, I know that it's a topic that might be a little bit boring for some people, but I would actually like to see CCP introduce corporate governed insurance, so contracts that you can actually use instead of SRP. So the cost and all that is just going into the coffers of the corporations.
I would like that in game. Yeah, I think that would be nice if there would be an in-game option for SRP.
I know
like
that
the
Quan
insurance
has
contract.
kind of talked about something like that. It's just how to implement it and make sure that it's not abused.
Yeah.
It is true that it does have a big impact if you have SRP and then turn it off. I remember when the Bastion lost our space in Vale of the Silent and retreated to Cernan. At one point, funds were low, and I sold a personal Nix to be able to fund SRP for a month. And that it's that kind of stuff, hard decisions you have to make, and hard decisions are part of Eve. And now it's a fun story to tell later.
And I personally hope that we will see a point where the extreme high-end stuff is not SRP, but everything else still is. So you can still have proper PvP, but it's more balanced. I've always found the whole bling fleets a little bit crazy that they get SRP'd. It just shows that the old economy of passive income was way too high and way too much easy mode. And it's the same with the cost of Supers and Titans just dropping to like half of the original price, right?
If you spend a year building a Titan, working up all the stuff and building it yourself and fitting it and getting it ready, it can be scary, depending on your personal psychological makeup, to get in that ship and jump into a fleet and trust your fleet mates to protect you and go out there and PvP. If you lose it, it's a lot of work to replace it.
I think it's really depending on what kind of players you have in your alliance, because at that point, let's assume you're like taking your super out in a fleet with an FC that is, allowed or capable of seeing supers. Not trusting that guy or like requesting SRP to join that fleet is, to me personally, coming from basically my entire history of alliances, haven't had any SRP mostly. And for me, it's a silly thought. I think people should join without SRP, and then they can, I would rather pay or reward people that do a good job than getting them used to it or whatever. It just makes people like I said, if there's no more SRP, they don't join or whatever. I don't think it should be an adding a factor whether or not I'm going to join that fleet if there's SRP or not. And I always think it's funny when I see other alliances, as soon as the FC pings, well, this fleet doesn't have SRP because it's a fun roam. He gets like 10 guys, and then he's like, oh shit, I need more 10 guys. And he's like, all right, guys, there'll be SRP, and suddenly he's like 50. And I'm like, well, whatever, dude.
I haven't seen that. But how would you reward someone that did a good job?
Well, we reward plenty of people that do a good job. There's easy, we don't have paplings in PL, but I know there's basically all other alliances, bigger alliances, have paplings or some sort. Participation trackers. You could reward people for having a good participation. Or what we do is we reward our people for being good scouts, good probers, good people that find a lot of wormholes. We have a couple of guys that have been scouting and helping the FC team for the last months down here, and just a couple of weeks ago we gave the top contributors a year of Plex each, for example, that they can sub their accounts for 1 year without having to pay for it. We just gave them that. We paid it with the alliance. That's how we reward our people for being helpful and participating.
That qualifies as a reward.
Yeah, there's lots of ways. Like Plex is great and nice, but some of us poor alliances, it's just simply after a fleet, the FC can ask everyone to tip the Logi or tip the Dictors or tip the people who did the extra work in the fleet. And it works out pretty well. Even if they didn't lose something, they're being recognized by their alliance mates. So there's lots of ways to do it. It's not hard. But again, if you're joining an alliance because of SRP and not because of the cultures for you, well, you're probably making a bad decision. You really want the culture of what you're joining to be the way you want to fly.
Yep. Completely agree. How does the initiative recognize a good contribution?
We didn't really have a formal mechanism like PAPS or anything like that, although we do just kind of look at it over time. I don't like freaking out about it if there's a corp who's not participating every now and again, but just kind of look at it on average, and you can kind of spot the people who aren't showing up and who are showing up. So we just kind of deal with it informally like that. We don't really have a formal clipboard type thing or anything. So yeah, we just kind of did it that way. I mean, we could probably do some better tooling, and but yeah, there's a risk if you go down, hardcore tooling, then it starts getting a bit too administrative and too prescriptive. So it's kind of easy to see who's participating, who isn't.
All right. Anywhere else PvP is occurring in the South right now? What's going on in Catch? I mean, what are the main objectives going on? Is that just, oh, let's roam through and shoot whatever we catch on a gate?
I don't think there's any big objectives. Legacy Coalition is bringing in some new members, getting them established, doing all the friendly intosising, transfer of structures. That's what's going on. And then people run through because it's the crossroads. So we're always fighting people traveling through from all different flavors, usually good fights. But I don't think there's a big objective right now. Like I said before, the Russians, it's wintertime, so they're trying to migrate out of Stain. So we're always dealing with some attempt from them to take some space and come back into Catch. But there's no huge thing going on in Catch right now. It's just nightly good fights.
Test is on a holy purge to remove all non-test friendly structures from Catch, and they've managed to kill two fortresses so far that we've gotten from one of the forts we didn't even know they existed until they reinforced it, the BTEC X1. Because when CO2 died, GigX sort of, because we came over for in reinforcement timer once in Impasse when the whole CO2 coup was going on. We came over once with a PL fleet and shot Test and shot Goons. And he was really grateful. GigX was really grateful for that. So as a last thing he did, or he told his directors to do before C2 kind of closed their doors, they transferred us a bunch of fortizars for free. They just gave us a bunch of forts in a couple of systems in Catch that they had laying around. They gave some to NC Dot, some to us, and the Test has been working hard to remove these. So that's kind of happening in Catch. And apart from that, yeah, what Dinkle said, there's lots of roaming. There's all the streamer fleets that are happening, like Beyond B is taking over fleets quite often that come up here and that you can fight with, and there's plenty of Romans going on and stuff. There's no big major. I guess Catch doesn't really matter in terms of war, in terms of the war that's going on with Tri and AFCON and Co. Catch is sort of just the staging point for a lot of alliances, and therefore there's some skirmishes going on, but there's no major stuff happening in Catch itself. It's just around Catch.
And in MT02 TAC 2 in Paragon Falls is still a hotspot as well. And that constellation and that area is seeing a lot of interaction in a different time zone, though. That's sort of more AU/Russian/early European time zone.
Yes, that's correct.
Stuff going on up there as well. It's kind of interesting because the North has a section and the South has a section of PvP going on, but it's also separated in time of day. The North happens a little earlier in the day. The South happens a little bit later in the day. If you're really good and if you're unemployed and have lots of alts, you can participate in all of it. Just send people all over the place. And we sometimes see that our guys that aren't getting a lot of time zone action in their time zone are going up to just third party and observe and plink off people who are participating in the North, even though they don't have any actual skin in that game. So that's kind of That and the lifeblood transition is what's really going on in the game at the moment. We're coming down towards the end of our show. Is there anything any of the guests and staff wanted to talk about this time?
I'm just looking through Twitch chat, see if Twitch has any questions.
We've got some player meetups coming up.
It looks
Yep,
like since
we're
we
flying
started
out
the
Thursday.
podcast, Tatara sold for $20 billion, which is exciting
Wow.
industry news.
Mazel tov. Was that yours, Killa?
I don't think so. No.
Ah, shit. Oh well. Okay.
And yes, Amsterdam is coming up, and I am personally flying out Thursday, so it's going to be good.
Nice. And we've got a Houston meetup. And there's Event London. All right.
There's a question here. With moons being rearranged, do major alliances have plans to move around to adjust in turn, creating more content? Can I answer that? Is that
Go
still
for
in
it.
the window?
Go for it. I see it. Go for
All
it.
right. So the question, I don't think there's going to be major movement. So far, most of the scans that we've collected, which is most of the scans over New Eden, there's no significant change in terms of what the region values are. Some regions have lost a lot in value. Some regions have gained a little bit in value, but there's no big things going on, especially because it looks like there's a pattern. Because obviously CCP said it's random. The moon, like the way we spread the moons over New Eden is random, but obviously they use the seed, which means there's some sort of pattern in how it's being seeded. And it's very notable that all the regions that are close, or that, I guess the easiest way to say it is, the more dangerous the region is, quote unquote, the more valuable moons you have in there. So there's a very clear pattern that the regions that are deep in 0-0 have less valuable moons than the regions that are close to Losec, for example, or that have NPC space within them, or NPC regions themselves. There's a surprising amount of R64s, for example, in Providence. There's like a lot of very valuable moons in Providence because it is right next to NPC space. It is right next to Losec. And also in the north, it's very notable that there's more valuable moons, for example, in Tribute than there is in Tino. So yeah, I don't expect a lot of movement from alliances. I think people will work with what they've got, and I think that's good enough. I think if you play it right with these moons, if you have large enough of a mining operation going on, if you have enough ships available, you can make very good money with these moons if you are willing to put in the effort.
And internally in control space, things will shift around a bit, right? Like you hinted at with the guy in PL Killer, that's shifting his activities onto moon mining instead of mining anomalies, right?
Yes. So he's basically going to swap from mining colossals to just mining moon after moon after moon. He's probably going to set his 70 moons up that way that he's kind of chaining them, right? So that he can just go from one moon to the next moon to the next moon, and then they'll make him a lot of money. And he doesn't have to mine Mercoxit. Should be cool.
So there's some numbers that needs to be crunched, right, for the industrialist types. They need to figure out where to move their operations, but it's most likely going to stay inside the borders, right? That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't heard any rumors of any alliances moving. That would be something I wouldn't expect right now. I think people are just digging in and reacting to Lifeblood, seeing what's happening, thinking a little bit ahead to their winter plans, trying to keep their PvP players happy, trying to get their PvE players set up, trying to rebuild their incomes or watch what's happening to them.
But don't we have a chance of seeing more things like disruption, especially asking someone like Sister Blitz that you can kind of stage into hostile territory and disrupt things when it comes to structures and mining operations?
You can do.
Oh, I think there's going to be a tremendous amount of people out hunting, mining operations to go catch rorquals and all that kind of stuff. It's going to be a content driver, hopefully, that people are looking around for where the moon mining is happening and dropping in on them.
I'm not sure that's any different than it has been up until now, though. It's
I do think it's pretty different because they're moving around, and you're going to have to tell your people where to go mine, and that information is going to leak with a timer, and so people are going to know they're going to be in this system on this moon at this time, and I think it's going to lead to some fights that escalate really quickly, especially if some of the rorquals get tackled. It's a different situation than this is their mining system. This is where they always are, and here's their defenses around it. I think it's going to change things up a lot, and it's going to lead to more fights over this kind of mining stuff.
Okay. All right, let's I'm going to say a couple words of thank you to our participants today and our contributors. By the way, this podcast will be available afterwards. It'll be on SoundCloud. I subscribe to it on the iTunes system, and so I get it on my phone and listen to it in the car on my way to work. This will be, by the way, if you want to support it, you can support it at patreon.com/Matterall. That's patreon.com/MATTERALL. Thank you for your support. Matterall will be back next week to host again. I don't know for sure, but I think we might be talking about recent EVE history again.
I hope not, because that's where I'm in Amsterdam and I wanted to be on that show. So
damn.
We'll see.
Okay,
maybe you can push it back a week.
There's a whole bunch for Lifeblood that hasn't been talked about yet. We haven't talked about Greasta shipyards. We haven't talked about forward mining bases. We haven't talked about resource wars. There's a whole bunch of stuff yet. But so maybe it'll be the following week. Are there any folks who want to give a shout out?
Yeah, shout out to the scanning bros, I guess. All the people that have been busy scanning and shit. You guys have done pretty amazing work, and well, I think that's great.
Amen.
Shout out to my fellow members of the Education Department at EVE University. They've been putting in a lot of effort to standardize our curriculum, and we now have a set of so-called core classes.
Yay.
And I'll do a shout out to the brave recon teams and industry people that have been trying to get ready for this patch. And also, if you're not on the Tweet Fleet Slack, the people in structures and industry, it's really helpful learning from everybody else, learning how to do this stuff. So shout out to the Tweet Fleet people in Slack as well.
Shout out to Pando for putting in the hard work of managing a rental program in Fountain. Shout out to some of the Bastion guys who are working hard on setting up Athenors as we speak. And thank you again, everyone. We will see you next week, 1500 Universal Time, on twitch.tv/Imperium News for another episode of Talking in Stations. Thank you very much. Carneros out.